Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram where I am Skeindeer, and you can find me on Ravelry as the designer Skeindeer Knits. And don't forget the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is the place to take part in knit-alongs and the conversation, the community that is Skeindeer Knits, and yeah, everything really. Any questions you have, anything, any way to sort of take part and get in touch, that's the place for it. And whoa, it's been a long time. I don't know if it feels like that for you, because I have been able to kind of put videos in that I've made earlier, and that's kind of what I'm doing now as well. I don't think this episode's going to come out until much later, but that's kind of how things are working. So yeah, welcome if you're a new viewer. This is my knitting talk show. That's what I've come to call it. I think it's a podcast, that's what we call them, even though they're on video, but I always like to make it clear that it's more of a inspiration sharing place rather than an actual instruction kind of teaching place, though I'm happy to accidentally fall into the teacher hole from time to time. I don't want anyone to think that they're coming for anything instructive, anything like a tutorial, because God knows that's not what I do. I talk about what I knit, what I design, and for new viewers, thank you so much for returning back, for still putting up with me. You guys are fabulous, so thank you. And yeah, thanks for all the lovely birthday wishes. That was absolutely amazing. I had a wonderful day. Things were just really nice. Birthdays can be difficult. It's sort of judgment day sometimes, like see how many people you have in your life, and it can be quite and I have a lot of anxiety around that. I think a lot of people can relate to, but not to bring the mood down, it was actually an excellent day where I got to see people throughout the day, and I feel very lucky. And moving swiftly on to what I'm wearing, because there will be questions. I hope there will be. I'd be very disappointed if there weren't. It is one of my designs that has yet to come out. I'd really like to get it out soon so that people have a chance to knit it for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, though I know how unlikely that is. I know there are some really speedy knitters out there and it would be amazing to see it there. I'm going to try to be sporting this myself, albeit without any tickets to the actual festival, because I was too late. So that's I've got the Airbnb, I just don't have any actual entrance tickets. Yeah. They're not doing the podcast lounge this year, so if I'm there, I'll be just wandering about. That's the program. So yeah, the cardigan. It's called, for the time being, Korsakoff. Let me know if you find that an incredibly cringy name. I will change it, but I think I like it because I like the word kos better than hygge, because hygge to me is like cringe galore. So yeah, ruining everything you thought you knew about Scandinavia right here. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, I had finished it. I finished it around Christmas. I told you about it last time, I think maybe the time before that. It's done. It needs another 8 buttons, but I've never been known to be the fastest to put on buttons on things. It's knit in Peer Gynt, which turned out to be worsted spun, which is not excellent for cutting without sewing, as it turns out. I learned that the hard way. So I have made a flow chart for what yarns you can and cannot steek without sewing, and yeah, that will come out with a pattern. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to make it public on the pattern page, so that even if you're not knitting this exact pattern, you can still access it. But I hope you want the pattern. I am working very hard to get it out very quickly. It's unrealistically quickly given what a massive piece it is. I'm going to get up and show you. It's huge. It's like, it goes all the way down here. It goes like just below my bum. It is kind of a sort of worsted weight yarn, or heavy DK if you will. It's massive. It weighs 1 kilo. It's just like epic. I got very inspired. Hello, focus. Oh, I got very inspired to knit one for myself in my own design about last March, because it was freezing and I was like, I need a cardigan. I need a knitted big piece of woolly goodness that is excellent for the cold. And turns out we have cold here in London. It's freezing. I'm cold. My toes are cold. Everything's cold. I am just chained up to my fan heater and this beast of a cardigan. So here's for snowy days, woolly nights. That's what it says. Yeah, that's what it says. I need a hot tea as well. And there went half my lipstick. Anyway, I'm going to talk you through some knitting. I'm going to start off with the admin and then swiftly moving into all the things I've been working on. Whoa, So, well, I am running 2 knit-alongs at the present time. It's gonna change quickly, but for the time being I am running the year-long knit-along of 2019, which is where we aim to make 6 pairs of colourwork mittens for the duration of 2019. It's got the same rules as the last knit-along, which is basically all 6 pairs have to be made this year, not started before, not finished after. They have to be colourwork, a considerable portion of colourwork, and they can't be sort of loophole mittens. I think you know what I mean. If they all are obviously quick and easy to make and it's not a fair competition to those who make 6 pairs of intricate colourwork mittens, then you know that's not cool. But obviously you're allowed to try out any weight. I'm not going to put any boundaries on it. You feel that yourself. Yeah, any mittens are allowed that are colourwork, not ornaments but mittens, and that's all I have to say about that. Same procedure as last year. I hope you got that joke. Anyway, another knit-along that I may or may not be running at the time that this episode goes out is the Saturday Mitten Club 2, which lasts until the end of January 2019, and that is when I'm going to draw prizes. I might dedicate its own video to drawing prizes for all the knit-alongs that have been closed up. That is Juren Knot, Saturday Mitten Club and the year-long knit-along of 2018, and I like to have several winners per cal, so it's going to be quite a long one, so I think that will be its own video. So those of you who are either interested in watching or find that relevant to them because they took part, can head straight over there when that's up. I've decided that right now. I'm gonna hold myself to that. Yeah. Whew. So yeah, 2 knit-alongs currently happening, but one is about to start in the same spirit of the knit-along I held last February. Last February I held the very first Break the Rules cal, where we changed up the weight of yarn without changing the stitch gauge. Yeah, you were allowed to change gauge if you found it necessary. It's just kind of like, oh, let's find a fingering weight sweater and use DK or something like that, you know. This time I have decided, instead of calling it the Break the Rules cal, it's more of a branching out cal. And the current knit-along is inspired by all the people who have come to me and told me that they're not quite sure if they can knit English language patterns because they're used to Norwegian patterns and they have a lot fewer words, and it just must be very complicated when it's got a lot of words, and it's not. And I realised the issue goes much broader than just my little corner of the world from Norway. There's a lot of people who are only willing to knit English language patterns and are terrified of branching out to other languages, to other cultures and ways of writing languages. And people also want to use a pattern as a tool to learn a language, maybe already on the path to learn a language. Language is awesome. It bridges people from different places in the world and brings them together, and like, you know, it's a pretty awesome thing. And you think about what language can be when people learn different ones, and makes me kind of feel a bit bummed that I only know 2. I always wanted to know more. Anyway, digression. You can make this cal what you want it to be. The only rule is that you have to have started the project in 2019. The cal will wrap up in February, at the end of February, but you don't have to have anything finished. Obviously I would appreciate if you've gotten through a considerable portion of the pattern so that you have had that language experience, not just as a cheeky way of getting prizes. Yeah, the only specific cal rule is knit a pattern in a language that you haven't knitted more than 5 times. So if you knitted 4 times, it goes. I don't qualify. I have knitted more than 5 Norwegian language patterns. I have knitted more than 5 English language patterns, so I guess I could have a go at Faroese, Swedish, Danish, but I personally don't think I'll be taking part because Swedish and Danish is so similar to Norwegian anyway. I am maybe gonna have a look at some Faroese because I do have a couple of Faroese knitting books coming my way. Thanks to a lovely viewer who sent me a link to a Faroese bookstore with lots of knitting patterns. I had to navigate a whole page in Faroese, which is not a language I do speak. That's another digression. I'm talking about the cal, goodness me. So thanks to your positive feedback, that cal is going to happen, and it will kick off technically in the beginning of February, but if you're casting already now, it will go. So yes, that was the admin for today. I bet you want to see what I've been knitting. I have exactly 1 finished object. This is Freud Mirror, which I cast on in April, kind of like this one, and I guess now is the time where I'm wrapping up my April cast-ons. That's how quickly things are here, because I keep casting on things, as you will see momentarily. There's a lot of project bags happening right behind my chair. Yeah, but Freud Mirror is done. It is designed by Isolde Teague. I used JC Rennie yarns, which is not the recommended yarn, but I managed to find the same colors that Isolde used when she used S-twist wool, which is an amazing Irish yarn. But I went the Scottish route, although I'm not sure they source their fleeces from Scotland anymore. They are one of the like old school Scottish Highland mills that may or may not have outsourced to New Zealand, for all I know. Don't quote me on any of this stuff. They've got lovely soft yarn. It's very up the street of things like Hull Super Soft and Magazine Duet, Garnet Sal, that kind of thing. I believe these were the first. I do think JC Rennie were the ones that came up with the super soft term, which a lot of people find confusing. They feel the yarn and are like, oh yeah, that's nice and soft. It's not super soft though. Like, come on, I felt cashmere. This isn't cashmere, it's soft. Super soft is just a terminology that was applied to this kind of very fine Highland wool. I guess it was very soft for the time, maybe, but it's a word, it's a term. It's not really describing how soft. Super soft yarn is this particular category of very fine Highland wool. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, it's got sleeves. I've shown you the sleeves before. They were done a while ago. The body is bound off, and as you can see, it is a little bit shorter than the pattern, because I wear low skirts and it just looks weird if I wear a long jumper. I definitely can work a crop top better than anything else, so a shorter jumper is good for me. Actually, a jumper that reaches just my upper hips seems to be the best length, so that's kind of what this does. It's a crop top that doesn't quite know what it wants to be, and I think that's perfect. So yeah, doesn't have any waist shaping whatsoever. So this is the back, as you can see. It's got a lot of short rows happening here to lengthen the back, which is really nice, but it does not have any waist fitting. The pattern doesn't have that, and although I usually put that in, I did not do that this time. So this is kind of a loose flowy sweater. I adore it. It's so nice and light because of the JC Rennie yarn. It is soft because of the JC Rennie yarn. JC Rennie's balls of yarn are supposed to be washed as opposed to Hull Super Soft, but I will say, after having knitted it and put it in the washing machine on a hand wash cycle, a gentle, I think it was maybe Delicates, whatever is below 30 degrees Celsius and has no spinning friction whatsoever, you're safe. After I did that, it came out so much softer and had bloomed so much more. So even though it was technically already washed up in the skein, the ball, it changed so much after a wash. So even this yarn, it's quite the before and after experience. So there. Freud Mirror. I absolutely adore this. It's totally not my usual color scheme, and that's part of why I love this. I don't normally choose this, and I did anyway. That's I guess in the spirit of branching out or something. I've definitely found myself loving the yellows lately. So I got this, quite the outfit here with this shawl and this hat, which is also by Isolde Teague. So definitely goes well together, this jumper, this hat and this shawl. And that's an outfit to put together, isn't it? Yeah. This is the Sodada hat, which I can't pronounce, but it's in my Ravelry projects. Everything I'm showing you that I'm not actively linking to below is always going to be found in my Ravelry projects, which I will be linking to. Or you can click via my designer page. It's easy to find is what I'm trying to say. Do you have anything else to say? I don't think so, other than I love it. I think this is just the perfect yoke in so many ways. It's top down, I love that. Oh, a modification I forgot is actually I rolled in the neckline. The neckline's supposed to be about this length, but it's supposed to be just bound straight off, whereas I did a sewed neckline, so it had to be more than twice as long to fold over, and I just like that look. I've really kind of converted to folded over necklines more. It just looks slightly better. I think if I was to go back and redo some of my own designs, I definitely add that. At least the jumpers, maybe not the cardigan. That was a digression again. That's what we do here. Anyway, Freud Mirror. Haha. I'm very proud of it. Can you not tell? I can recommend it wholeheartedly. I wish like it was more fresh in my memory, because the vast majority of it was knit in such a long time ago, and I would have remembered more kind of the thought process that I had as I was making it. And now obviously I just have like, yeah, the bottom rib was bottom rib, it was rib and I ribbed it. That's my most recent memory. But I can recommend it. I love having this in my wardrobe. I love a yoked sweater anyway, and in JC Rennie yarn it feels so lovely and it's so light. I mean, you can see just how light and bouncy it is. There's nothing here that, like, you know, it's quite the opposite of this jumper, which probably means I love wearing these two together, because it's been that cold in London that I'm actually wishing I had more layers of wool, which to someone like me who overheats quite quickly as soon as they're in motion, that says a lot. And so we are moving into works in progress. I have picked up this particular project that was supposed to be like an autumn knit that I clearly did not finish for this autumn. It's in a bag I was given by the Little Grey Girl. It's a London-based bag maker who you find in a lot of knitting shows. And in this bag, this gorgeous, gorgeous bag, I have my winter shawl. My winter shawl has been picked up again. I have now finished the mid block, excuse me, of the really dark brown yarn. So just to show you how I worked it, started with this dark brown, did half a skein. I then proceeded with a whole skein of this like pumpkin orange. The dark color I know is called pumpernickel, and the orange I forgot. It's Loft by Brooklyn Tweed. And yeah, I finished a whole skein and then some for the brown in the middle, because I do know from past experience with the other shawl I did in this, with more of this color scheme, I did have a lot of the main color left, so I just put in a little bit extra here. I don't think you can tell even. I probably could have gone longer. But now I started with the last green section, which is sort of like this double moss stitch. So you can see that here. Whereas the other texture up here is a little bit different. I don't know if there's a name for this. And the brown is just garter. So altogether it's just, yeah, another winter shawl, nor English. I'm just really excited about having another one. I wear my winter shawl all the time, and I love to have another one in another color scheme that goes with some of my other things in my wardrobe, to the extent that I think about things going together. But I have found my winter shawl only fits like 99% of my wardrobe, so you know, I kind of needed another one. Plus I've had this yarn for over a year, and so, you know, gotta cast it on sometime. So this is how much I have left. I'm just gonna knit till the end of this green, till it's no more, and I can then do the I-cord bind off with the remaining brown. I think I have enough. I think it will all be fine. And there's not really that much left, you know, knitting up one skein and doing an I-cord. So I'm gonna bring this with me to various knit nights and what have you, and aim to have it finished, just, you know, to get stuff off the needles. So I'm still looking at that cubby in my shelf that's got all of the works in progress that I could have finished like that if I just knitted on those instead of all the other indulgence knittings that I'm doing. But yeah, no, I have cast on a lot of things, so we're going to talk about that instead. I may have cast on a couple of garments. Not one, not two, three garments. I'm going to start off with this one, which is in a bag that my mum made for me, and it is a cardigan that I am making for my sister. So if you have watched the previous episode, you will maybe remember from the very end I managed to squeeze in how I have more sort of a resolution, a knitting resolution, promise, goal, focus, whatever word you want to choose, to knit more for other people. I know that's kind of counter to what everyone else aims to, which I am completely, totally applauding. Personally, I have a lot of yarn, I enjoy knitting. We all know I have a lot of jumpers and cardigans, but I also have a lot of people in my life who would love some as well, and I love knitting for other people. Not as much as I love knitting for myself, but still. And I know my sister has wanted something for quite some time. She has a Mario sweater from before, but she wants something, and she's completely into yellow. A little bit like me, it's very much the same kind of yellow that she's into. and so she's getting this one. This is Amelia, which is a cardigan pattern on Ravelry, also knit in yellow, but just in a very different yarn, more of a hand-dyed variegated tonal yarn. And this is what we got. So I am first of all using Ask from Hillesvåg. That's kind of Hillesvåg's equivalent of Fenul, if you will, although I think it's kind of unfair to say that, so like Fenul is the benchmark. I'm just saying that because more of you will know about Fenul, but Ask is very much similar. You could use them together, you can exchange one for the other, substitute, what have you. I love Ask. It comes in hanks. It's just perfect wool for mittens and colour work, cardigans, steeking, what have you, which is why I am modifying this particular cardigan to be knit in the round with a pretty generous size steek. I probably could have cut out 4 stitches if not more here, which I can cut right through. I'm going to use the crochet stabilizer. I know everyone calls it crochet reinforcer. I just argue that it stabilizes more than anything. It's not a securing method, it's just a let's keep the strands aligned kind of, I don't know, maybe that's just me. So what else do I have to say? Rib was a pain. I don't like knitting rib. There was a lot of rib, but I'm through it. I have just bound off for the underarm, so I really just need to figure out how to knit the back and the front, the 2 fronts and the back in one go instead of doing each piece on their own. I have done that before. I did it with the Lady Marple cardigan in the Gilead yarn, so that shouldn't be impossible. It's just a bit of a challenge, which I will do, not to worry. So yeah, Amelia. I only have one sort of nitpicky thing about it. It's a cropped cardigan, right? It's modeled on, it's clearly cropped on the model. Reaches her to about waist, upper hip. Clearly cropped, but it's hourglass shaped. Let me show you. I have given it a bit of a soak and dry, so it's more subtle now. But why this bit, if this is down to the waist? Why is it? I don't understand this, but maybe that's just my shape. I'm gonna just leave it in and try it on my sister. If she likes it, if she doesn't mind, it will stay this way. But if she doesn't, I will probably fold it in and sew it in, so there will be a seam here, and I'll cut off the excess so that it will be this way down to the waist instead. Because I don't understand why you will hourglass shape something that's cropped. That in my head just doesn't quite work, and I'm not sure why I just did it without thinking. But that's usually what I do when I knit for others. There's less modifying because I don't have their bodies here to modify. I don't modify their bodies, that's bizarre. You know, the clothes I'm making for them, I don't have their bodies here so I can modify their clothes. Which is also partially why I love knitting for others, because there is actually, I knit more efficiently when I do that, because I don't put a garment on hold because I'm not sure how to modify it. For me, I have to try it on, and it's all this like thing that I have to do on my own time, and I can't do it at knit nights. Whereas when I knit for others, I just follow the pattern, because what else can I do? So, well, apart from the whole steeking, doing it in the round kind of thing. So I'm left with this weird bulge, this hourglass shape. I'm gonna show you this. Just, I like the pattern, just don't get me wrong. I can highly recommend it. I just maybe wouldn't do this bit for this particular length. It does come in 3 different lengths, so it can be relevant when you do the longer versions. But it does have this instruction specifically also for the short one. So you see, this is my narrow point, right? And it's supposed to go from here to under the arm, which is right up here. It just doesn't make any sense for me. I don't know. Just, yeah, that's my, maybe you guys have some thoughts. Maybe there is something about anatomy that should make sense. It does increase back up again here, as you can see there's a more gradual slope, which I really like. I just wish that would have been all the way down instead. Well, I'm not a tailor, I don't know, but that's my thoughts for the time being. I enjoy this. The chart is not as mindless as you'd think. It took me about up to here before I had it memorized, which I usually have a chart memorized after maybe 1 or 2 repeats. This is a bit trickier, but I finally think I've got the logic. It's about having these kind of 3 eyelets continuing up here like that. So that made, once I was thinking about it in those terms, it actually was a lot more memorizable. Yeah, I absolutely like this. I really enjoy knitting on this. I don't know why it took a break. I just wanted to cast on other things. Had I not done that, this would probably have been finished by now. That's pretty much the story of most things I knit. It would have been done if I hadn't cast on 5 other things instead. Yeah. Anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about other things I've cast on. In this bag, this is my mode bag that I got from Camilla, who's the maker behind Mode, in the Valbit yarn shop in Oslo, although probably also available on the website, should anyone ask. In this bag is vertical stripes, and yes, it's also yellow. What is the deal with yellow here? What, isn't this supposed to be the Burgundy show starring Burgundy and me? No, apparently it's the show of yellows. It looks a bit mushed together, words, but yeah, it's been with me on a lot of journeys. I tend to bring this to knit nights nowadays because it's just rib, and I don't like rib, and I decided to do a whole jumper in just rib. Why? So it starts off with this very simple 1x1 rib, and then it's a 4x4 rib, and it's this all the way, right? So I'm just knitting. I don't know if I'm going to crop this to have it the recommended length. I might just do something between. I need to get up to the underarm, knit the back and front, I guess. It looks like that kind of construction. And then rib sleeves. It's all ribbed. Help. Why am I doing this to myself? But fun fact, I saw a woman who was wearing this very design on the airport in Norway when I was going back to London. And she had a toddler with her who was also wearing a petite knit design. Yes, this is another petite knit design. You will know the designer from the no frill sweater, but she does have a series of mohair designs that have come to my attention lately, and I really wanted to make vertical stripes. I put it on my Make 9, so I feel very good about having cast this on, and it's beautiful. I love this gold. It's amazing, and I'm already thinking about my next petite knit design. I'm thinking Stockholm sweater. You know, maybe in my onion yarn that I got earlier. But this yarn, however, I am holding together 2 strands. They work beautifully well together. I will now show you the yarn. First of all, I am holding a strand Filcolana Telia, which is probably the best kind of compromise between soft, lovely silk mohair and price, I would argue. I'm holding this together with Nøstebarn. Nøstebarn is a Norwegian chain store that specializes in knits for babies and toddlers, and they also have their own yarn, so you can knit your own instead of just buying the clothes. And they are all about using pure non-superwash wool. The yarn is soft, it feels like wool, it's exactly how it should be. I love it. It's very light and fine, but you can knit it very loose, and it's nice and breathable, and I just love how they defy all those myths that you can't and shouldn't knit pure wool for babies, that you can't wash it, that it's not good for them somehow. I don't know much about babies, but I know a thing or two about wool, and wool is perfect for babies and has been for centuries. That is me on my wool soapbox. Anyway, the yarn is gorgeous. I adore this yellow. I may have gotten 4 hanks of it, and yeah, that's a lot, and it's way more than what I need for this sweater, so you probably will see this yellow come up in other projects from time to time. I will say this yarn is highly compatible with the likes of Holst Super Soft, so you could use those together, which is good to know, because Holst, as much as I love them, have rubbish yellows, so, you know, get your mitts on some yellow. I say that, this is never gonna be, you know, buy this, buy that podcast. I just always get questions about where you can get stuff, and it just ends up being that in the conversation. You knit what you want, honestly. If you wanna cash out and work with the most luxurious high-end yarn, and do that. If you wanna just use a pound or 2 on your skein, then do that. I do both, that's my thing. I'm not the yarn police. We don't need gatekeeping in knitting, do we? So yeah, this is just my internal rib beast. Maybe make me like rib someday, who knows, I could use that. Just ribbing away. It's a good knit, night knit. I don't think about ribs so much once it's established and I'm on a knit night, so it's, yeah, it's very good for that, both this and the shawl. So that's what I've been doing lately. There is one last project to cover. This was not planned. This was not, I didn't think I was going to cast this on. I hadn't, well, I have wanted to, it's just, it's never been in my queue. I've known about it for a while. It's not for me. Well, let's start backwards. I'm knitting this, the Afterparty sweater from the latest issue of Lane magazine, assuming issue 7 haven't come out yet. I'm knitting this for a friend who I haven't talked to in years. We may have exchanged the odd comment on social media, but really we haven't talked in years, and we're on good terms. It's fine. We have a mutual best friend, and she just told me that she would love a knit sweater. Like, she's not had the easiest time, that's, you know, private and personal, but if I can make her life just a little bit better, just for 1 second, with a hand knit jumper, I don't care that we haven't talked in years. If that's gonna make her happy, that makes her so knit worthy. And if I can get some of my whole super soft yarn out of the house and not add more to my own wardrobe and still get to knit and be happy with my color work and everything, everyone wins. So it's not all selfless, but kind of. So yeah, Afterparty, I am well into the rib. It's supposed to be about 2 inches, 5 centimeters. But that's not all I've done. I also have, where did I put, oh, I've got the sleeves done. This is so quick. This pattern is so fast. These sleeves probably took me about 2-3 days, maybe 4, because I haven't knitted just this. It's fast. Yes, it's using very fine wool. I am using whole super soft. They are recommending Beaches and Bouchers. It's very similar yarn, similar meterage, definitely up in that category of fine lamb's wools, that sort of super soft category. So, well, I've got yarn in the stash, so what's stopping me? This is from that huge cone I have from Holst, which you may or may not have seen. I'm going to show you actually. This is one of those very few shameful purchases I just never showed you. This is massive. It was even more massive before I wound off 100 grams from it to knit the sweater. That's kind of how I knit from cones. There was a question in my group actually. I will wind off about 50 to 100 grams on my wool winder because it's just more portable. It is possible, totally possible, to just have this on the floor and knit straight from it. I find it a little bit tedious. It does come off very easily because it's made to be knit, you know, used to a knitting machine, which is, it has to come off easily or the yarn will snag or you ruin your tension or break. So yeah, it's either, you can do either, but if you know you're going to be bringing it around, you probably don't want to bring this beast of at least 1 kilo. I don't know how much there is, doesn't say, but I know it's about 1 kilo ish. So yeah, it's in the colorway Venetian from yeah, in the super soft series by Holst. It's a lot of yarn for your money here. I don't even think I paid £20 for this thing, and it's got probably 10 sweater quantities in it, so you know, that's an exaggeration in case you didn't catch that, but there's probably at least 4. So yeah, I'm not even going to miss using a little bit of that yarn for that sweater. I get to knit a smaller size, that's going to be faster. Gotta admit, that's appealing. Yeah, and I get to make someone happy with a hand knit jumper. It's funny, we were also joking about how her long-term partner is a rather accomplished musician in Norway, and it would be such a fun thing if I did a jumper for him, and that could be like a thing that he's got, like the Skeindeer jumper, and like it would totally go with his brand and it would be hilarious, but very cheeky, so maybe for another day. Don't know if I have much else to say. I am using actually 4mm needles on this. Yeah, 4mm on whole super soft, very light fingering weight yarn. That is a US 6, as it says on my higher needles. It's partly to do with how I knit rather tight, but it is a pretty loose gauge for this kind of yarn. which I think is fine for stockinette. Once this yarn blooms, it will be a totally different beast. Now it's quite see-through and webby, but when this blooms, you guys, it's gonna be amazing. So it's quite icky now and stiff and just not very nice, but it's gonna be so soft, kind of like that Freud Mirror sweater. It's a very similar yarn, like I said. My only hesitation about this pattern is that it gives different gauge for color work and stockinette. In a way, I'm gonna do it because I agree with it that a 24 stitch gauge is the kind of loosest I would do color work with whole super soft and similar yarns, and their recommended yarns. Whereas a 22 on the stockinette is actually fine. I just don't agree of having different gauge for color work and stockinette, because that makes it pull in. You're essentially saying do not, you know, adjust the needle size for the color work if you knit the way most people knit, which is a bit tighter for the color work. Some people do the other way around it. Some people have no difference, and I find that a bit weird. It's as though it was knitted and then the gauge was measured, rather than making sure gauge was achieved across the board. This is, you know, the gauge police here. Not really, but kind of. I wish it was just all made for 24 stitch gauge, but I do appreciate how 22 is quicker and I can still get 24 on the color work, which I think is more appropriate for the yarn. So mixed feelings. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna follow the pattern. It's just maybe not, I wonder how it's gonna look, but I will say it makes sense because it's with the rib, right? It's just above the rib, so it will already be pulling in here, so you can't tell. It's going to be at the color work yoke, which is already going to be pulling in because that's when you start decreasing. So it's cleverly placed, I will say that, so you can get away with it. The other thing that may astound regular viewers is that it's bottom up. Not that the pattern is bottom up, but the fact that I didn't modify it to be top down. I have been known to teach classes about converting bottom up yokes to top down and making other modifications that I commonly do. It's a class I'm really proud of and I'm definitely going to do more of, but I was actually going to do that here. I had started to cast on for the neckline and I failed to follow the instructions. It is easy enough to follow backwards, but you need to follow the instructions, and I didn't. The other thing is that the short row shaping, you have to think about them in reverse. That is really difficult, and it relies on where you place the stitch markers when you started the yoke from here. So this is one of those cases, and I also mentioned this in the class, is when I would start doing a provisional cast on around here and knit the yoke from here and up, and then pick up here and knit down. Then you know you're gonna get it right. You still get the top down feeling for the length, you know, the sleeve and the body. It's just that I wasn't feeling the whole provisional cast on that night. It was late. I wanted to cast on a fewer number of stitches. I wanted it to be quick, and having already failed on one provisional cast on for the neck, because I still did that because I just thought I'd put up the rib for later, and failed on that, I wasn't going to make an even bigger provisional cast on, so I just followed the pattern for a change. I think it'll be fine. I'm a little bit concerned because I know I'm going to get a much denser row gauge than the pattern says. People get vastly different row gauges on the exact same type of yarn or the same yarn entirely, and there is very little wisdom or explanation behind it. People just knit differently, especially in color work. Row gauge can vary so much from person to person. It's usually not the designer's fault, so the fact that they got, it's never the designer's fault, I'd argue. So when they get a row gauge in color work that requires fewer rows to make a certain length, and I need more rows to make that length, we are just different, and it's the knitter's job then to accommodate for their own knitting style to make it work. And so I'm gonna have to do that. I might just put in a few more rounds before I get to the color work. I might just say screw it, it's gonna be an acceptable length even if it's not the recommended length. You know, that's kind of the approach you have to take when you find that row gauge differs. It's tricky when you can't really vary the length, like with, say, I don't know, color work mittens. Then you may need to consider factors that could influence that. Maybe you are knitting quite loose, but with floats that constrict how much that looseness of the stitch can go widthwise rather than lengthwise. That's a thing to consider. For that, I would stretch out the stitches a bit every time you knit. So once you have something on your right hand needle, just do this. Get them spread out widthwise and make sure your floats allow that. It's a good trick in general for basically avoiding too tight floats, which may or may not be a related issue here. So row gauge is tricky. It's a pain, and it often requires a lot of maths to make sure that you can accommodate for a different row gauge. It's one of my biggest gripes with this recent kind of pattern designing culture, because in one way I love how we are all about preciseness in pattern designing now. It's really the books coming out about it. Kate Atherley's writing so many good stuff about it, and it's very much about being accurate and precise, and so you can really safeguard yourself as a designer and says, no, if you get stitch gauge and row gauge, everything will be perfect. This pattern is 100%. But it's forgetting the human variables that isn't going to knit like a machine. You know, it's going to have all these idiosyncrasies, words, English. It will differ. So no matter how good a pattern is, you may find yourself running into these things where your individual knitting styles there's nothing wrong with. It's still going to be a challenge. And you will need to learn maths and just do the thing. So that was a digression. Anyway, I'm enjoying this knit. Definitely recommend the pattern. It was fun to see that Liz on her channel had knit this in her yarn, and she's a hand dower, and it was a very different look, and it's really cool to see how a sweater can just look very different in that way. And I know that Aileen, who's from kind of the same knit group that I know, is knitting my Winterfjell design in a yarn that's more fun, to put it lightly, with a lot of colours, and it changes throughout the yoke, and it's like you can do so many things, so many different things from the initial design. And so I myself am not doing that many different things. I'm just kind of going with a different colour scheme, a darker contrast, which I hope will look right. I definitely love this colour combination. I hope my friend who I haven't seen in ages will. I hope she doesn't find it too awkward to get a sweater from me, but something tells me she's just gonna cry, so in a good way, you know. So that's my knitting. I do want to give a special shout out to the bag that this is in. This is from Woolly Originals. I picked up this bag in New Jersey. I bought it there, and have since come across Woolly Originals everywhere. These bags are amazing. They are machine knit, stranded color work in, I think, JC Rennie yarn, but don't quote me on that, and could be one of the Jamiesons. It's lined. I love this so much. If I had all the money in the world, I'd buy several, but for the time being, I am deeply in love with this bag, and I try to use it on everything. I often actually put projects that I don't necessarily want to knit immediately in this, so that it will look more appealing, because this bag is gorgeous. I can't guarantee this, but I have heard, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but I wonder if they're going to vend at Edinburgh. If they're not, they should, because these bags are astounding. And the only thing we have left now is actually acquisitions combined with a review. So the first thing I want to show you, which is not in my show notes because there's not really any way I can specify it, is a bag that my mum made me. She sews me bags every so often, which is really nice. She's kind of picking up the old sewing machine joy. She's even gone and had it serviced. She's had this machine since she was, what, 19 or 20, and she's mid-60s now, and finally having it serviced, well, that's good going. So despite it being very difficult to work with before that, she has made me another project bag. We were so rudely interrupted by the Amazon delivery, and it wasn't even anything for me. I mean, so anyway, I was going to talk to you about the yarn that I have purchased, and then I will finish off with a review of one of the things I have been given. I just realised right in the middle of this that I completely forgot to mention that I've released another pattern. I didn't mention that in the last half episode that I kind of put out, which was a bit new, but I thought I'd mention it in a proper episode as well. I finally have released a pattern with loop, London, which is insane. God, it's amazing. Thank you, Loop. Thank you, Susan, who is the lady behind Loop. It's been incredible. I feel so lucky. I've already gone over this in the, you know, in the mini episode, which maybe I'll do more of. That was quite nice, but it does require the setup still. So. Anyway, it's out. You can get it on Ravelry. You can get it in print from Loop. Wow. Yeah, that's the thing that happened. It's a 2-in-1 pattern. You can do fingerless or full mittens in there. It's got lace, it's got Latvian braids, it's got colour work, it's got all the things. I'm proud of it, and I thought I'd mention it just once more because it makes me very excited. So it's out. I look forward to see you guys knit it. It's definitely qualifying for the year-long knit-along. So I almost want to start a cal for it, but I've got enough cals running and I got a cal that this qualifies for, so I think I'll leave it at that and continue on with acquisitions. I have basically, yeah, mostly things I purchased, but there is also one item have been given for review, so I will finish off this whole episode with that review. So I got some yarn. My local yarn shop, Wild and Woolly, is currently renovating, which I'm very excited about, and I could still order yarn from them online, and so I did, and I got a whole load of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight in their unbleached white, because I kind of want to knit, well, I want to knit this shawl in white to look more like the sample shawl my mum has. So I thought I'd have a go at this yarn, although I have been since informed that Snalden yarns, which you can get from Midwinter Yarns, who are amazing people, that works really well, and that's kind of what they do use for Faroese shawls. So I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled for that in Edinburgh if I get in. So yeah, but I mean, meanwhile I've got this that I'm gonna hopefully make a shawl out of, and I picked up 10 of these. And this is actually Faroese. This is Navia Silkiull, which is, yeah, it's a silk wool blend. It's 25% silky, and 75% wool. It's got 190 meters. People differ about what weight it is. I've seen it categorized from anything from DK to fingering, so I'm gonna say it's sport. And I'm already kind of thinking about what to knit with this, because those of you who have followed me for a while and seen my Make 9s will remember that in my last Make 9 I had the Natsumi sweater by Yoko Hata, and I had in this Make 9 changed my mind about knitting it. I had bought my Opus Walcott yarn for it, and then I ended up making the Hay sweater by Claire Mountain instead, and I wasn't going to make Natsumi, I figured, but then I got this yarn, which is black, and I think a black Natsumi would be amazing. So Natsumi is back on the table. It's a sideways made sweater that's kind of a high-low cropped shape. It's got a braid knit across here, a cable, so to speak. And I want to knit that. It sounds like a very interesting construction with an awful lot of purling, but I'll push through. And with a black silk wool, I mean, I can't go wrong. So yeah, I got 10 of these. I'm probably only going to use 8, which is good because only 8 of them are in the same dye lot, so I can use the other 2 for an accessory, like a hat or something. I do wear a lot of black, I just don't knit much with it, so yeah, challenge accepted. That's not the only yarn that's made its way here. I had a bit of a Black Friday splurge. I had like 5 Black Friday splurges, and I'm not very proud to admit that because I think Black Friday has I mean, it's great for like low-income families to get the Christmas presents sorted when, you know, they're made to feel like they have to. It's complicated. I can see the pros of it, but I also see the difficulties of you know, for, you know, the planet and stuff, when we have this like massive consumerist day, and when people like me jump straight into the rabbit hole and buy all the yarn. And I did buy a lot of yarn, and I'm going to show you. I would have been a bit foolish actually to not take up this offer, because I love Hillesvåg, but going there in person all the time isn't really feasible, and so making an order is preferable, but their shipping rates are not the most customer friendly. They're more for wholesales and that kind of thing, I think, unless I got it wrong, sorry. So when they had free shipping on their Black Friday, I got cones. So I thought this was going to be 2 sweater quantities, but turns out the Huldra cones, as opposed to all the other ones, are only 200 grams each. So I don't know what I can make in this quantity, really. I reckon, I mean, I could do some shawls. This is their 100% wool worsted spun, so it's quite fine and smooth. It's not Norwegian wool as far as I understand, although pretty much nearly all what they have in their mill is. This is one of the few exceptions to that, as far as I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been told. And so yeah, I got my 2 new favorite colors. It's a very lovely red that kind of is blowing out a little bit. It's a bit warmer. That's probably better, isn't it? And this beautiful yellow. This is my kind of yellow, you know, this is the new yellow that I found myself loving so much. I thought this was going to be enough for 2 sweaters, but I guess it's more of yeah, shawls, unless I get more cones, which, you know, is always an option. Though I do have some hanged sweater quantities of this yarn already. I have enough to make a blue and a green sweater. It's just such a lovely yarn, and it's near impossible to get from anywhere but the mill, where I'm from in Norway. I found this yarn a lot actually in the Rogaland area, but in Trøndelag this is virtually impossible to find. So I was very pleased to open up these when I was in Norway for Christmas, and actually only got them here now because they had to be shipped to me from my mum's, because my suitcase was a bit full. The other cone is of course Ask, a whole Ask cone of this like amazing, almost like cherry red. I don't know, did they have a name for it? Ruby red. It's probably more accurate, isn't it? Yeah, this is, holding it up to the camera makes it blow out, but maybe this is better. I'll try. It does make it blow out, but yeah, it's very much of a ruby red. It's towards pink, but not quite. I love it. I do have a considerable amount of sweater quantities in Ask already, but I just love Ask so much, and I want to have lots of sweaters in it, and I have, I think, none so far. So gotta start knitting these. First of all, my sister's gonna get one, and then I'll start knitting for myself, right? Because I do bind off things before I start new things, right? So the other Black Friday splurge that I did, which I don't regret, but it was an extremely good offer and it's just not been worthwhile. So not only did the shipping come to quite high, that was okay, that was to be expected, but that shipping rate was taken into account for the import tax, and putting those 2 numbers together made me not really benefit anything from this sale. So be wary of that if you order from America, but I did anyway, and it's very exciting. I got my first 2 sweater quantities of Madelinetosh. So relating back to what I said earlier, I am very much all about knitting affordable yarns. I love things like Hillesvåg yarns, Holst yarns, pure wools that don't cost an awful lot but are gonna last forever. But I do also like to splurge and treat myself, and if I find that I can allow myself and afford it, and I haven't really indulged in this kind of yarn before, I'm not gonna apologize for that, you know. So that's, you can enjoy both. That's kind of what I'm trying to say with this, you know. You have my permission, not that you need it, but you have my permission to enjoy non-superwash and superwash alike, to enjoy commercial and hand-dyed alike. Yeah, nobody here is the yarn police, least of all me. So I got 2 sweater quantities, 1 in each. I'll talk about this first. This is the DK Twist. It's in the Red Woman colorway, and I will say I was a little bit let down when I received it. It's a beautiful color, but it doesn't look very close to the color that I saw in the pictures. The pictured color was more of the red that you are more used to see on this podcast. Definitely a cooler, less orange brown, more on the purpley side, but still very much a red. This is definitely more on a brown orange side, as you can see here. I still think it's gorgeous, but it's more of a, yeah, a blood red than a ruby red. I am almost tempted to include the amount of time I spent to get it to focus on this bit. That should not be this hard, but I guess it's the color my camera doesn't like to focus on. But you have to see this up close. It is gorgeous. I just wish the color would have been what I had in mind. I'm not sure I'd have picked this between the two, but I am gonna knit with it, don't you worry. I still think it's a color that looks good on me. It's just, yeah, like I said, not what I had in mind. But I don't need everything to be burgundy. So, and this isn't too far off. I'm being very nitpicky here. And it is also why I do prefer to pick yarn in person, especially if it's more high-end yarn. I tend not to order that online. This is one of the very few occasions where I tend to go to for festivals for hand-dyed yarns and things that are a bit on the high price tag, so that I know I'm not gonna have this sort of experience. But it's here, and I am already thinking about things to knit with it. Considering the Hohi Locatelli sweater is called Cable something, Cables Galore, Cable Fest, Cable something. I saw Mina Philip knit one, and I'm like, although it will forever bother me that I will always love Mina's version more than whatever I will make, because the color she went with is just right up my alley. But there we are. DK Twist. Completely and wholeheartedly blame Caroline of Dunder Knits and Knitting Vicariously for this, because she's the biggest Madelinetosh DK Twist enabler in the world, and you know, hashtag blame Dunder Knits. So I'm gonna use that as an excuse for this splurge. And yeah, I'm gonna talk about the other sweater quantity that I got. This is Lannister Gold, and yes, Caroline has also rubbed off her love of gold on me. But you know what, I think this works. This is as far into yellow land as I think I'm willing to go. You know, I'm quite fussy about the yellows. They have to be grubbier, goldener. Well, is this even English now? Anyway, I think this is okay. I'm also looking into one of those rosy, cheeky merino, rosy green wools, whatever they're called. They have a very lovely yellow too that I am considering. So I have not a tale of woe exactly, but a bit of a surprise. I did not pay attention apparently when I put this in my cart, because this is on the receipt, so I should have known, but I didn't know until I got the yarn, which is that this is not DK Twist. This is what I've never heard of before, High Twist DK, which is not the same as DK Twist. It's even twistier, because it's got fewer meters, which suggests to me that there's even more gone into plying this yarn compared to this. I think they look rather alike, and if anything, the yellow looks thicker, which is interesting. I am also thinking about the stag head pullover, which means that me and Caroline will be cringily matchy-matchy. But yeah, that has been one that I have considered. Something cable. I think both of these needs to be something cabled, because something with this amount of twist is going to lead to amazing stitch definition. And I will say that both Caroline of Knitting Vicariously and Amy of Stranded have made me go a bit back on my own words about superwash sweaters that I had initially dismissed entirely, and I didn't think I was going to do it again. And I started destashing my superwash sweater quantities, and I've come around a bit there, and I think they have a place, because I tend to wear either cotton sweaters like this one, which is store-bought, or pure wool knitted sweaters. One is too cold and one is too hot in some occasions, and having the middle ground, which is what superwash wool is to me, my wardrobe could use a few of those. So it's got its place, you know. There are pros and cons of superwash. We've gone over them before. But I would quite like to have a few jumpers like that in my wardrobe. So one gold, one Lannister gold, one of the Red Woman. And no, I did not realize the common Game of Thrones theme here until they arrived at my doorstep. But they're not going to be used together. I think that is a little bit too Gryffindor for me. And as you know, if you do know, I am a confused Raven Puff. I mean, this could work there, but yeah, the struggle is real, you guys. You know, it's the PhD. Am I a Ravenclaw? Am I all about the intellectual pursuit of the becoming Dr. Skeindeer, or am I just about the coziness, the pleasantness, the friendliness, the sociableness of being a knitter and being cozy? It's the Ravenpuff struggle, you guys. If you wonder what my opinion is on this, the whole sorting hat thing, the Hogwarts thing, is that the test the Pottermore stuff is nonsense. You need to exhaust your friends about this and discuss this over hours every time you meet. What house you are, what house you think the other ones are. That is how you find out. And I'm none the wiser, but you know, that's more fun, isn't it? Use your friend as a sorting hat and let them sort you. But oh yeah, this thing is going to be so durable. Like, I can already tell the difference between these two. This is the high twist. It doesn't exactly have a halo, but compared to this, kind of, this thing seems like it's just gonna wear incredibly. The high twist means that the pilling proneness of soft yarns like merino goes down, and I'm all about that. So when it comes to superwash yarns, the higher the twist and the more the bouncier the yarn is. That's the terrible sentence. Well, the happier I am. Can't speak English. Anyway, that was all my yarn acquisitions. I'm going to talk about 3 books that I have acquired. The first book I want to show you is Knit to Flatter by Amy Herzog, which is a long time coming in my knitting book library. This is all what I'm about, right? I'm all about modifying garments to fit my shape or anyone else's shape. Albeit I tend to skip out on it when I knit for other people for easiness, the convenience. English. And well, Amy Herzog is all about modifying for different shapes, and I guess I assumed this book was more about that, which I'm now not so sure it is, having flicked through it. This seems more about choosing patterns based on your size, based on whether you are, relatively speaking, top heavy, bottom heavy, or more equal. And I'm not sure I agree. I know she's kind of right, you know, if you are bottom heavy like I am, then the ideas here are that you balance it out by wearing something more top heavy. And for me, I don't like that. I know for some that makes sense. Personally, I'm quite happy being bottom heavy. I like the sort of vintage shape that gives me, if that makes sense. I can have a big skirt and a narrow waist. Relatively speaking, it's not in any shape or form a narrow waist, but you know, relatively we're going here. I don't want to make my torso balance out my bottom. Personal preference. There's nothing wrong, but it's not quite what I was looking for. So that was a little bit, I was hoping for something like Amy Herzog's custom fit, which I think I need to have. I think I need to get that online. You can purchase a pattern and it's fairly affordable, a lot cheaper than a book, and maybe have a go at that. I think that would be more what I was looking for. That's not to say this was a waste of a purchase, because it's very much up my alley anyway. We can discuss the word flatter, whether it has a good or a more other meaning. I have thoughts about this. I have nothing decided. But I am very much happy about having a knitting book that is about any knitting can fit any body type. Yeah, so I'm happy to have bought this. It's just a matter of whether it's usable on me, because I'm not going to put trousers on and a heavy sweatshirt to balance out, you know. I'm still going to wear my skirts and crop tops. That works on me, I think. I don't know. There's lots of different ways, and this book is in no way dogmatic about these things, by the way. I didn't mean to make it sound like it is. It's good. I don't have any issues with it. It just wasn't quite what I, with my shape, would actually want to wear. So I can still use it when knitting for others. I still have access to a lot of great patterns in here, and Amy Herzog is definitely worth listening to, so I will still learn a lot from it. The other book I got, hang on, oof. Okay, it's not that heavy, but it's quite heavy. It's Interweave 100 Knits, which is Interweave's ultimate pattern collection. Having said that, does not actually have all Interweave patterns in it, but it's got 100 of them, which isn't too shabby either. That's pretty much the reason I got this book. I mean, you get a lot of patterns for your money there, and that was reason enough for me, quite frankly. But having said that, Interweave's got a very high standard, so everything I got in here is fabulous. So I'm going to show you some of the patterns in here that immediately caught my eye that I think I'm going to be knitting. First of all, this hat that's in the very beginning of the book, I already knew I wanted to knit. It's been coming up a lot on Ravelry lately, and I'm just, yes. Having said that, I realized the size, it's got 18 inches circumference, and my head is more of a 22, tops 23 inches. I've got a massive head. It's difficult to make hats for, so I think I'm gonna make some serious gauge adjustments to this to make it fit my ginormous globe. There was some other hats in here that had 22-inch measurement, and I wonder if I'm just going to take some wisdom from there as well. And yeah, I've just confirmed that actually making a hat to measure 22 inches isn't going to be wrong somehow. So I'm gonna do that, and I absolutely love this hat. Actually, I want to recommend you check it out on Ravelry, because the photos there, I think it's used different colors, and those colors really appeal to me. It might just be a different light, but yeah, those, I think I'm gonna go with something black, and yeah, I'm still thinking about it, but it's definitely a hat I want to make. There was a cardigan that caught my attention as I was flicking through as well. I really love how it looks. Not sure about the styling, but if you just look at the cardigan, I mean, I could definitely use up some of my Ask sweater quantities there. Sans the bling, the glitter, I'm not sure what's the deal with the, like, is that like a disco tee? I don't know. I don't know what cool young people are into nowadays, but I love the cardigan. I think the cardigan is going to be absolutely awesome if I ever get around to knitting it. It is a raglan cardigan, which I had kind of dismissed, but I think what I don't like is an open front raglan. If it's a raglan still with a crew neck, yeah, I think I want that. And here's another photo. I'm going to try to show you without revealing the pattern. It's going to be tricky. This is how we're going to show it, because otherwise I will be showing you the text and I don't want to do that. But yeah, gorgeous. I literally just discovered this right now, just like flicking through the book. And the same designer has actually this Cheryl Chow, I think. It's also made this cable goodness. Am I on a cable kick? I may have queued up a couple of, you know, Michelle Wong, Jared Flood sweaters lately. So I might be feeling the cables. I'm not sure I'm feeling the look of the cables more so than actually making them, possibly. Is that even a different thing? I don't know. So anyway, those were the first 3 patterns that caught my attention that I may or may not cast on if, you know, should I be casting on more things? I don't know. But I really like them. I will say this book doesn't have the kind of patterns nor sort of styling that is kind of up my alley. But I think I need to be better at seeing how things that aren't styled in my aesthetic can look in colours that are more me, in yarn that's more me, on me, in my shape, all that stuff. I very often look to things like, you know, the traditional Norwegian patterns that I use, or things like Lane Magazine, where the styling is either of the items or the setting in the photography is so me that I don't have to think that hard. But then actually finding a photo that is more on this style with the sort of bright lights and like happy cheerful colors and a more wardrobe look than a knitting look, is not what initially appeals to me in my knitting, but it's actually maybe something I could more just think more deeply about. And so I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I think if you look through the photos on Ravelry, you see that there's, I don't know, it's just like very bright colors and very sort of maybe easy to like aesthetic, and I tend to be drawn to more either old-fashioned looking or more different looking things. But there's no reason why I couldn't just make this in my kind of yarn, my kind of colors, and make it work for me. And I think I need to think more creatively about my knitting in that way, because very often I look at other people, what they knit, what they have on their podcast or their Instagram, and it's a pattern I would never have considered until I saw what they did with it. And there's like nothing stopping me from thinking that creatively myself. So I'm kind of trying to take that on board, whatever that, I don't know if I made that clear or come out right, but what have you. The last book I was sent from the publishers. This is from Font Forlag, and I have been so excited about this book. I had actually already agreed explicitly with my mom that she was going to buy me this as for my birthday present, but then last minute Font Forlag got in touch with me and asked if I wanted to review this, and so I will. This is Inspirerende Norske Strikkemønstre by Wenche Roald and Annichen Sibbern Bøhn. And Wenche Roald is honestly one of the best Norwegian knitting designers out there right now. She is so talented. I love her patterns, her aesthetic. She's just really thorough and her patterns are clear. It's huge inspiration. I talked about patterns a lot, and when I heard that she has been working on this book not that long ago even, I got very excited. What's even more exciting, or as exciting, what have you, is at the very back here, it's a reprint of the book that has inspired this book. So this is a reprint of the first ever Norwegian knitting book. Right, so I mean, it's not that long ago since knitting was kind of seen as just like, I don't know, something like women did that we didn't really care about. Is it really worth writing about, you know? It's like men running the show, and this came out actually documenting Norwegian knitting. I can't talk. What else is new? So I already have this as a reprint from Terry Shea. I'm awfully sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, but this is essentially the same book but reprinted in English, kind of made for an American audience, and I had to get this from the States myself, but it's finally been reprinted in Norwegian again as the original book looked. And I mean, if anyone can find the original print, I will happily buy it for you, from you, not for you, for me. Oh, but yeah, I am still stoked to have a reprint. This book is so important to Norwegian knitting history as being the first attempt at documenting it. It's fabulous, and I am just so excited that this was included in this book. So this book is based upon that book. All the charts are retrieved from that book. There's a lot of story for each design in here, how it relates back to the book. So this is kind of how it's writing about the original book, and you know, there's some words from the author there, the designer. Already starting with the photography, and there's a serious history section here on the woman behind the initial book, Annichen Sibbern Bøhn. And there are knitting techniques, stuff for you to learn if you're new at knitting. So this is the thing in Norway, and someone who just started knitting may actually just buy this kind of book with full-on color work, and they will learn to knit from that, and they will make a full-on colorwork sweater as their first or second project. I see it all the time, and so it baffles me when I hear people who say, oh, I can knit colorwork, I can't do that, I can just knit stockinette. I'm like, I see beginners do this all the time. There's no reason why that should stop you. Have faith in yourself. I have faith in you. You can knit colorwork. It's nonsense that you can't. You can. Unless there's like factors about you individually that I don't know about. Obviously I can't know everything about everyone, but you get the sentiment. And so yeah, the book. I'm just going to show you some pattern highlights, like this yoke. It's gorgeous. If we have some focus, I don't know. This is perhaps my favorite actually. This is just stunning. Another marvelous yoke right there. It was a raglan technically. This sweater as well. I'm such a fan of this book, if you can't tell. More patterns. Just note that this is called Serbugenser. That's the Serbu sweater. It's also redone some of the mittens in the book. So there's one of the mittens that's pretty clearly charted from the book, and they've been included here. Anyway, I think you get the idea. It's full of garments for adults, for children, accessories, and even more amazing is that it's all the photos, each pattern is added to the Ravelry database. You can only get them in the book, but you can see them, you can preview them all on Ravelry, which is quite unusual for a Norwegian print publication. I'm pretty sure Wenche has something to do with it, and I'm so happy that it's out there for you to look through and see the different patterns as the designs look. As for availability, I doubt that this is available in English, at least for the time being. I have heard nothing about it being in translation, and I can't really do anything about that, but Font Forlag, I'm sure they will, you know, if, you know, written politely, happily take into account any wishes to translate. So you could always get in touch with them, write an email, say that you would be interested in an English language translation or any other translation. You could find a publishing company where you're from or in the language that you prefer and say, you know what, you do these kinds of books, would you consider translating this Norwegian book? Like, there are ways to influence things, but me, I am not in the publishing industry. I just been asked to review this, that is it. I am very sorry, it's disappointing when they're not available in English, or how easy it is to get it from Norway, I don't know. Happy for you to ask in the Norwegian Knitting and a Yarn help desk in my Ravelry group. There might be people who could help you out there. I really am just a media monkey at this point, just showing off this book. I think it's great. I can recommend going through the struggle of obtaining it. I don't know myself how I would be able to get it had I not been sent this for review, or my mom sending it for my birthday. I can just recommend it. It's like all the other library books that I have, that's just like a pain to get hold of, but once you do, it's gold. So that's my review on that. I always try to, you know, put in some negativity just for good measure, and I think it relates back to what I had to say about the Interweave book as well. The photos in here are very bright and colourful and cheerful, with smiling people in their knitwear, and it's again the struggle that I have to adapt that to my gloomy self and make it work. Being a bit tongue-in-cheek, but you get the idea. Oh my god, I have to show you this cardigan first. Just digression, this cardigan is incredible, but you get the idea. It's a very sort of cheerful sort of family knit book out in the nature, you know, bright smiles, happy colors, and I am, I guess, a bit more about the gloomy aesthetic. So in a way I suppose we should be happy that it's so cheerful. In another way, I think I again need to exercise my mind about not needing to see things portrayed in a certain way. It's really just down to the garment in the end and me making it work for me and my body and my mind and what have you. So yeah, that wasn't really a criticism, was it? It's just more about me and my hang-ups generally. I think I find it easier to decide whether to knit something if it's just on a hanger in a photo. I know that's bizarre, but yeah, in the end, I think this book is great. I love the photo on the back, because it's making a reference to the original book and it's just adorable. So yeah, thanks so much for having this book sent to me. That was, I can get used to this, that's amazing. So yeah, it is available in Norway, should be in every bookstore as far as I'm aware. God, I haven't been in Norway for a while anyway. It was frustrating enough that this book was going to be launched 2 days or 3 days after I left. And just knowing that as I was still there and not able to access it, but I am stoked to have it now, and I might need more bookshelves actually. It's just full of yarn. I also want to show you a bit of a fun fact in the reprint of the original book. You might just recognize a little something. I'm not going to show you all of it, but don't say I never base things on traditional things. I always try to do that because I'm like very hesitant about calling what I design traditional, because it's new. Like, it's not traditional, and a lot of the things that we think of as traditional is remakes of the traditional stuff, and so for me it's a remake of a remake. But this is a documentation of the traditional stuff, and I always try to tap into that so I can with some confidence say that it's at least tradition inspired. And it's not really because I'm all about, oh, things how they were back in the good old days, because it wasn't. I don't think me as a woman would be a very happy person back then. I just am more about lifting up women's craft. And obviously if men did it, I would be lifting up that too. The craft that has been looked down upon because it's been one of those women's things, you know, that's what I mean. Whoever's done it, I want to up it, you know, I want to give it the recognition it deserves. That's kind of more about it. It's, yeah, it's a bit of nostalgia too, but more so about the aesthetic more so than the time. I'm very much happy about being in a slightly more modern time. I think that's all I have to say. I do want to round off this episode with a little bit of a down note. It does happen every so often that I'm left with a comment on YouTube that has become a bit of a recurrent thing, and that is people commenting that I don't always look into the camera, and I find it really upsetting, and I'm just going to put out a wish to stop saying that, because psychology student here, this is a general human thing. When people need to think about what they're saying, they divert their gaze. So like if I asked you a maths equation, you would divert your gaze. You will be having to think about that. I just have a greater need to do that when I try to think about what I am saying on a podcast. It's very important that it comes out the right way. I have to weigh every word that I put out. It's so many things that are up for scrutiny, and it's going to stay up forever. So I need to put in a lot of thoughts into that, and I need to think, and when people in general need to think, they divert their gaze. And people giving me a hard time for that and coming in the comment section and saying it's so annoying when you look away, just go find something else to watch. I don't have time for that. I find it deeply hurtful. It's like saying, it's like a criticism of my need to think when I talk. It's hurtful, so please do not. I know the vast majority of you guys watching this do not do that. You are amazing people, and you don't need to hear me say this. You don't need to be like reprimanded or anything. You just, I'm so grateful for you guys. I'm sorry you had to listen to that, but it was a thing I felt worth bringing up, and I am sure you understand. I just thought I'd make it clear that I'm not like angry with the majority. I'm not. It's just a thing that's hurtful. Maybe people aren't considering that it is hurtful because that happens. And I just thought I'd make that clear. This is not the time for me to talk. I think I need to sit down with some admin work, which is usually always the case when I'm done recording. But oh wow, I am glad that I found the time to record. It was not planned. I hope I will also find some unplanned time for editing. So whenever I have time to sit down and edit, and this is up there on the internet, I am so glad that you found the time to watch this, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.